Okay. Also going to upload on the chat. Just 1 second. The file, in case anyone doesn't have it. I think Hoover was here last week. Hold on. There we go. Right. So yeah, put the file in the chat. We're finishing actually today the first part of the second chapter. The second chapter, different than the first chapter, is the idea of the tools of the Keser in our versus the midos, the attitude of the Keser of Hashem. So we want to emulate Hashem. In the first chapter, we talked about the midos of Hashem, the attitude of Hashem. And here we're using the tools that were given in starting with humility. He calls that part of it. And then our thought process, we did last week, the metzach, which is the forehead, which is kind of an attitude that we give off. And the next 4 or 5 are going to be how we use our ears, our eyes, our nostrils, our face, and our mouth. And that finishes off the second chapter. And after that, he goes from what the ideal attitude and behaviors we should have to a practical way of doing it, saying that I know it's impossible to always behave this way, and therefore the Ramak goes into a strategy of how one should. So first he presents what should be, and then he presents practically how one could at least try to tackle this path of perfection, of attitude towards people, of doing the right thing, of reacting the right way, of humility, etc. So now we're going to go into, we're holding on, in the PDF would be page Samach Daled. If you're following along in Sefaria, we're holding Haravias, the 4th of the parts that Hashem has given us that we should utilize properly in both service of Hashem and in interaction with others. So it's Parak Sheni, page Samach Daled on the PDF, Haravias. So what is the Revias? It says the 4th thing is Oznai, people's ears, which is obvious because the question is, hey, Hoover, we're starting with the 4th on Parak Sheni. I posted on the chat here, but last time also the Tomar, Devorah, the PDF file that I'm using, which is a loose translation of the in Hebrew, all in Hebrew, of the Tomar Devorah. Parak Sheni, it'd be page Samach Daled, which is equivalent to 64. So he says like this: the fourth so to say tool, I like to call it, that a person's given that should be utilized properly is oznai, a person's ears. Meaning, the idea basically of only listening to good talk or listening to good things. So let's see how he explains. Shi oznav noites tamid lishmaya tov. Your ears should always be pointed, so to say, or directed to only listening to good things, right? You could join a good conversation, or you could choose to join a negative conversation. Amnam shemea shav ay hamaguna. So he gives 2 things. One is shemea shav. Shav is a wasteful thing to listen to, or inappropriate. Maguna is inappropriate. Lo yikonis behem klal, should not enter your ears at all. So again, we know that obviously you can't walk around with earplugs the whole day, but you could choose what conversations to participate in, or if someone starts to talk to you about something negative, and today this is especially important, not just in bad or evil talk or wasteful talk, but there's also talk that's also harmful talk, right? If you listen to too much negative talk, that could bring anxiety or fear or other things. Sometimes you just have to turn off and not listen to the talk, the noise outside, because it's not productive. So Shema Shav is all inclusive. When you say to listen to Shav is wasteful, or wrong things, or things that are or even Maguna, inappropriate things. There's many levels of that. There's Lashon Hara. There's evil talk. There's being part of a conversation of ideas that are not fruitful, or not going to bring positive. And then there's also things that are harmful to yourself, right? You listen to too much negative talk, it gets to you. So like he says in the translation, Diburim loy tovim gunim. These are just not good things. A person has to be careful not to listen, not to join those conversations. Kederach, and say so like this. Kederach shesoid hazan hel yoina, ein shum tzakas din. So you have to look, what does God listen to? Right? In this week's parsha, in Parshas Vayera, we say that that Hashem hears the cry of the girl who was tortured, right? So he has to, because it's such a cry that it penetrated. But generally it says, what is God's attitude? Hazan al means, what is God al how does God listen? Ein shum tzakas din. He doesn't listen to the cry of judgment. And the blemish of evil talk doesn't enter there. God doesn't just listen to talk that's judgmental. Again, din is not lies. Judgment is not lies. Judgment is judgment. It's someone says something and that's a lie. It's called a sheker. Din means you're being judgmental. You're saying the right things, but you're applying it to therefore judge the person. Right? Look what this and this person did. It's true, but you're trying to bring judgment. Hashem doesn't want to listen to that. It doesn't mean that God doesn't pay attention. We're not talking about being impractical and being oblivious. What's Avimelech saying? I didn't hear. He uses that excuse to not take any responsibility for what's happening in his land. He tells Avram, I didn't hear anything. So we're not talking about being oblivious and being irresponsible, but to just listen to dwell on the judgment. Sometimes when you listen, don't pay attention to what the person is saying and why the person is saying that. So the idea is the cry of the judgment, the demand that a person says, that the voices say, whoever is saying, demand judgment for the sake of judgment, as opposed to figuring out the best way forward. And lashon hara is just harmful talk. So kach lo yazin ela tovis v'advarim hamo'ilim. He puts a very good word here. Hamo'ilim. The word mo'il means helpfulness. A person should only listen to good things and things that are helpful, something that's positive, something that's productive. Sometimes you need to listen to criticism or to things that are happening. Again, not to be oblivious, but in a way that's mo'il, that you're helping the situation, not furthering the damage, or definitely not doing worse, or just for the be part of the conversation. But if there's nothing mo'il, there's nothing benefit, there's no benefit from it, so that you don't pay attention to that. Like it says in the translation here, only listen to good things about the other person. And other things that are helpful. So here he says like divrei Torah. But I think inclusive of me'ilim is not just divrei Torah, which is of course things that are positive, but mo'il, things that are productive, that we could do something with. Hey, Drew, the middle of the revius, the fourth of the Midas on page Samach Daled in the PDF. I posted it on the chat, the PDF again. So the person has to listen to things that you can be productive. Ushar hadvarim, but he says other than the rest of the things, hamagbirim kas. It's an amazing description. There are things that cause anger. You like to listen to things, or you sometimes listen to things that magbirim. The word magbirim is from the word gevura, that flame anger. Right? You listen to it, you get angry. You hear that someone did something like this, and either it's personal, or it's in general, or it's but the bottom line is that the point of it is all that it just inflames anger within you. Don't listen. I mean, this is not just about the other person, it's about yourself. Right? How many times do we have to tell ourselves, I don't want to hear it because I'm going to get upset? Because the end of the day is either you're going to get upset and react wrong, or you're just going to be upset itself is not a good thing. But Ushar Dvarim HaMagbir Mesakas, he defines it as that flame the anger. Never listen to those things. Things that are so. The opposite of mo'il is anger. What's helpful? When you're angry, that's not helpful. So if you could be helpful in the situation, if you could help fix the situation, help maybe comfort someone, or do something productive. So that obviously, and if included in that means you have to hear the full story, obviously you have to be informed, right? If you can't just give an opinion about something without being informed, right? We're not Avimelech. We don't say, no one told me. But it is, if it's just about Magbir Kas, just to inflame anger, Is lo yazin elem klal. You don't. That's not something you should listen to. Again, over here we're talking about Hashem has given us ears, and we have to say, how do we use them? He says, he gives an example of the snake, right? The snake was manipulating and using his mouth to kind of say all kind of things. Talk of the nachash, like the nachash was always trying to be lashon hara and other kind of zilzul, of other kind of ways of being destructive or bringing people down, should not enter you at all. It should not enter your ears at all. He says, on top of that, not only should you not enter, so he says, one thing is only helpful. Number two is don't listen to things that are going to cause you to become angry. For many reasons. Angry is to be angry. That means the bottom line is that you get angered from it, and there's no productivity from that. So also you shouldn't add anything shum davar maguna, anything inappropriate. Things that are inappropriate, don't listen to. That's what it means. Don't listen to things that are shav. Shav means wastefulness. And kol shekain, he says even more, shar dibra hamaguna, anything else that's, he says over here, divrei nevala v'leitzanis. Nevala means inappropriate, and leitzanis means just making fun, right? You have a choice today. There's so much we could be trigger happy a whole day commenting on posts or this or that. So today, these are things. These are our ears are also. It's what we're listening to, what we're paying attention to. That you could just like to leitzanis is just everything's is a joke. Those things should not enter your hearing at all. You should be a person that listens to good things. I know someone that Pashut literally, you can't, literally does not want to hear Lashon Hara. Doesn't like to hear Lashon Hara. Just doesn't like to hear it. It's an amazing, I'll tell you something else, that even one of the beautiful things I always appreciate about my father is, my father really generally does not like to hear bad things. He literally doesn't like to hear bad things. It bothers him if you say Lashon Hara. And I know other people like that. They're not interested in being part of such conversations. And that is the idea of the ears. You've given ears, and you have to use it in a productive way, and definitely not in a negative way. So that's 4. 4 is how we apply the koyach, the power that God's given us, to what we listen to. We could choose what to listen to. Say about the Rebbe Shabbos, birthday is coming up to Shabbos, that even noise that was distracting him, he kind of worked on himself to not hear that distracting noise it disturbed his teaching, that people were talking, so he didn't want to listen to that. It's distracting. So in our ears, there's many levels, a large spectrum of things of how we have to avoid anger, things that make us angry, only productive. It means positive. But in general, the bottom line of it is that our ears should be a tool for bringing in positivity and productivity, that we should be productive in our attitude of what we hear. That anything we hear should be only for the purpose of something that's moyel, or something that's toiv, and definitely just for the sake of negative, or just for the sake of anger, or to allow, I think the big lesson today is, in general, this is a lesson for all times, but I think if one had to take one note out of this 4th thing, would be the idea of anger. I think today that's very easy to become angry about the things that we're listening to, and not that we shouldn't be informed or just live to be oblivious of what's happening, but there's no mitzvah to allow it to keep on becoming angry either. Sometimes you have to know what's going on, but if you have to ask yourself, how productive is the anger going to be afterwards? Okay. Hey Howard, what's up? So I posted, if you want to follow along, we're doing the Tomar Devorah. It's on the PDF in the chat, and we're holding now page Samachay. So that's the ears. Now obviously comes the famous one, the eyes, right? How do we use our eyes in an appropriate way? 5th thing, enough. How does a person use their eyes? And obviously not to look at things, not just not to look at things, but not to dwell on things, to pay attention. There's looking and there's looking on things that you shouldn't. And here, there's like in everything, there's a flip side. You have to be careful, because again, you could be oblivious and say, I don't look at anything, and I didn't know, right? Avimelech again says, no one told me, I didn't see, I didn't know, right? That's an excuse. and right. So if you say it, no one could call you on it. You didn't know, but you have to add. We're talking about the keser here. Keser is above right and wrong. Keser is the point of the keser. When we say that we have to emulate the crown, is at the end of the day he calls it a nivus. He calls it the humility. But what's at the bottom of humility is the honesty. I mean, to have an honest conversation with yourself, not to excuses. No one's gonna. There's many excuses in the world, but to have an honest conversation. What are you listening to? What are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? What kind of attitude are you giving off? Right? I didn't say anything. What kind of attitude are you giving off? To get in touch with Kesher. If you want to have the avoida of what the Tomar Devorah is saying, what's Titan Emes Yaakov, right? Yaakov has Emes and Anava. Moshe Emes, Taras Emes. Moshe was truthful and he was humble. You have to be honest. If you can't have an honest conversation with yourself of what's really going on, then this exercise was probably pointless. So same thing with what you're looking at. You have to watch what you're looking at and be honest what you're avoiding to look at. So he says both sides. Einayim. What is the next one? Is the eyes. Einav. So it says Einav lo yistakel b'hem shum davar meguna. Just like you shouldn't listen to anything wrong, don't look at anything wrong. Meguna means inappropriate. Or meguna, literal translation would be maybe something disgusting, but mechur is really disgusting. Meguna means it's something that's not appropriate. Tiena tamid pkuches. But a person may say, you have the people who like to walk around. I've seen those people also in Yerushalayim who like to put their hands on their eyes and hope they don't bump into anything as they're walking. God forbid, look at anything. So he says, that's not either the way. Omnam, however, they should be open. Right? Because then if you say, I'm not looking at anything, so you don't know anything. And therefore, when someone says, how did you see what was going on in the world? How did you see what this person was suffering? How did you see the injustice and be quiet? Because you chose not to look. So you don't look at anything bad, but God gave you eyes, right? If he gave you eyes, you're supposed to use them, but use them for the right things. It means pay attention to things that need to be paid attention to, and don't look at things, pay attention to things you shouldn't. You choose what you look at. So he says, don't look at the wrong things, anything inappropriate. However, they should be open because God gave you a blessing of eyes. To pay attention. Hashgiach means from the word hashkacha. Hashkacha doesn't mean just to see. But hashkacha means to really pay attention. And therefore you can have proper compassion. Those people who are in need. Don't close your eyes. Sorry. When you see a poor person, the Rebbe speaks about that when it comes to poor and rich, it's not just in money. Poor and rich could be in Torah. Poor and rich could be in other emotional help. There's many things that a person can be poor in that needs someone to pay attention that they're lacking something. Emotional stress. There's anything you're lacking in a balance of things. You're poor in that idea. So kshir b'tzaras ani, when you see someone an ani, a poor person, whatever that poverty is in a tzara. Don't close your eyes. He uses the word even deeper than hashkacha. Hashkacha means to watch. Yispainen is from the word bina. Try to understand. Each person according to their abilities. And what should be the purpose of the paying attention and to be misbainen and contemplate? So that you should awaken compassion within you, a love on this person. That either you daven for the person, right? Say Tilim, daven, or interact with other people on behalf of this person to help this person. So Bifnei Shemaim means to Hashem, and Bifnei Abrius means to other people that could help this person. So you have an obligation. So here in the eyes, in the ears, if you look at in the general conclusion of how a person's supposed to use their ears, it's more of caution. But of course, listen to things that have to be productive, but in general, caution. In the eyes, it's the opposite. In general, pay attention to what's going on around you. At the same time, caution not to look at what you shouldn't look at. But the eyes are given to use. Means the ears are coming in. The eyes are the difference. The ears takes information that enters, goes into you. Eyes, you could choose what to look at. You could look around and pay attention. Don't say I didn't know. Don't say I didn't see. Don't say it's, no one told me. See how you could help someone. So here, the difference between the eyes and the ears are not just vision and listening. It's also an attitude difference. Ears is basically, you have to guard what comes in and make sure that you allow in only good things, but generally guard, keep anything bad out. And the eyes is the opposite. It's being productive. You have to pay attention. Look around, see if you could help anyone. Just make sure not to look at the wrong things. So, right, it's two different things. So it's two different attitudes going in two different directions. And he says, but you should avoid paying attention of anything that's negative. So he says, why? And now he says this idea that mainly the eyes are for positive, but obviously make sure not to look at bad things, just like God. So when he says Elyon, he's referring to Hashem. The is always open to look at good. So what is the bottom line? It's an amazing thing, because usually one thinks that the eyes, you see people walk around the whole day covering their eyes, is maybe, that's a tzniya, a person of tzniya, a person that's tznuah, a person who's careful, which is all very nice and good. But the point of the Tomar Devorah is no, eyes are meant to be used, open them, look, pay attention. And just be careful not to look at the wrong things. Because when you're looking, everything has a vulnerability, right? There's chitzonius, there's negativity that could take advantage of any situation, right? So you have to just your job as a person, and a person who has choice, is to choose what to look at, but make sure to look for things that are positive. You don't just say, okay, I happen to notice. Look, see, pekuchas means you're looking around to see how could you pay attention to any situation. And the Ramak, obviously, in the larger picture of things, understands that that's something that must be encouraged, because it's easier to say, I closed my eyes. He says, don't close your eyes, keep them open. Pekuches, leave them open. Okay, so that's the fifth. The sixth one is an interesting one. Most people don't pay attention to it, is the chaitim. Chaitim is the nostrils. But the nostrils is also, again, this is the idea that the five, we have eyes, nose, mouth, and ears are all entry points of communication, right? So what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you say. So these are all different things of interaction, what's going on inside you. That's the famous idea of shoftim v'shotrim. The person has to put guards and watchers and judges by these openings, by your eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, to pay attention to what goes in and what goes out. So one of them is the chaitim. Now, what's the chaitim? Chaitim is nostrils. What's the avoda? What is the concept of the nostril? So we have the nostrils, of course, is the idea of the Ketores, the sacrifice that it says God v'yorach Hashem es reach nechayach. There's the idea. There's an expression in the Talmud, I believe it is, or in the Medrash, that says the balachaitim ani mispalel. That is actually when they want to describe what does it mean to daven. It says I daven to the entity of the nostril. The balachaitim means the person or the entity of the nostril. God referring to Hashem in his level of the nostril. Ani mispal, I daven to the nostril. So what is the idea of the chaitim? So he says like this. In the chaitim, he focuses on the idea of anger, because it says charaf, that the nose is the anger comes through the nostril, right? It's an expression that his nostrils, his or her nostrils are flaring. So anger is one of the points. We know also that's the entry point of our soul, right? God breathed into our soul, into our nostrils, our soul. So he says, what's b'chaitim? So here the Tomar Devorah says, Mi oilim lo yimatze b'chorn afklal. A person has to avoid to be angry at all times. A person should always have within themselves, tamid means always, that their nostrils are giving off chayim and a good attitude. Ratzin tov means a good attitude. Varichasaf, be patient, right? Don't get angry fast. Don't be short-tempered. Even those, of course, obviously, that are things that are inappropriate, or things that are you're upset about, whether it's to you directly or things that you can get upset about in general. But be patient. Don't be a hothead. And a person should always that what's the connection between, so let's first do the translation. The translations, you should always look to fulfill what people need. A ratzon is a want, to try to fill other people's wants. Lahafik kol shela, to give off and to answer, so to say, every quest. Lahachis kol nidcha, to give life to every person who's been pushed aside. So what's that have to do with anger? Because simcha, I mean, the opposite of anger. I mean, if we have to go to one word to define the chotem, the way he describes it is patience, really. So the patience that a person should have, we must use the word patience, because otherwise the anger and the malice seems to be, I mean, they're both stay away from anger and to listen to people, but why they come into the same conversation is that when a person gets short-tempered or just annoyed, I'd call it more annoyed than anger, right? You get annoyed at things, so you're right away quick to disengage from the person. A person can annoy you, ask too many times to a person. There's many, you get annoyed. So how do we avoid annoyed? You have to have patience. You have to have patience, and patience. What is patience? It's not just to sit there, holding your wrist, your hands clenched together because you don't want to give off the impression that you're impatient, but to really tamid rights l'maas ratzin. You should want to really to fill people's wants, to be able to answer every question, every quest, and to give life to everything is nitcha, everything that's every person or entity that's been pushed aside. That you want to really have patience. But patience is not just to be in a way of really forcing yourself, but to really exercise patience in the way that you should actually be looking to help someone. That's what he says. You're always giving off the impression of forgiveness, meaning you're accepting pesha, and to overlook the sin. So that could be again a large spectrum, whether it's a real sin or annoyance or means it's an attitude. It's what's the difference between the metzach? The metzach we said last week was and the next now we have the panav, which is the face, which is also an expression. But the choitim is about patience. It's patience, that you're giving off patience. You're not short-tempered. And it says you're not angry. You don't get upset when someone sins to you. Tamid. You really you're constantly appeased. You like to do good. And you want to bring calmness to everyone around you. And in order to do that, you have to have patience. And you have to have patience and not be short-tempered, and allow for, in Chassidus, it says that the most sensitive of all the entry points is the nose. The nostril, it says, what does it say about Mashiach? Moirich v'darn, that he's going to be able to judge through smell. It means the nostril goes straight up to the brain. The nostril is a very sensitive place. And over there, that's, patience is very hard. You have a lot of people that are nice people. They could do nice things, but they lack patience. So it's not, again, no one's judging a person who's lacking who's lacking patience, but this patience is something we have to work on. I believe that's the end. That's the point here. The seventh one he says is panav. Panav, we have to analyze the difference between the forehead and the pana, and the face and the forehead. But let's see how he describes it. What's the face of a person? Tihena me'iras tamid. Me'iras tamid is you give off a good. Meir means to light. Your face should always be shining. You should give off an amazing impression on people. So also, it's interesting is that seemingly the face doesn't receive, it only emulates how you're feeling. But he says also the kabel, to accept kol adam sever pan yafis, when how your face shines at the person is the person looks at you if you're approachable or not. You give off on your face a face of being either not in the mood, of being impatient, or being a person who doesn't want to be approached, or is your face of a person that's approachable, You people that are actually experts at that, you see it sometimes in an annoying way, but some people that are experts, they look at the people's faces to see if they're approachable, right? So they read a face. So your face should always be a face that gives off the impression that you're approachable. So you should give off light and be accepting to people that when people see you, they want to approach you. She came because that when it comes to Hashem, what is the expression that we find about face? It says, that when people look at what is the light of God's face, the face of the king is life. People see life in God's face. People should see life in your face. You're a live person. You're ready. You're approachable, right? So there's so much you don't have to say. You don't have to use your eyes, or definitely not your mouth, to let people know you're unapproachable, right? So it's not, you don't have to just put on your headphones on the plane to let the person sitting next to you know you don't want to have a conversation with them. You can give it off on your face as well. And he continues, so what's one of the things that on the face expression is red. Oidem is red. So red, and not in the way of embarrassment, but also red in the way of anger and judgment. You shouldn't show any expression of din or anger, oidem, at all when you interact, and Hashem doesn't do that. Kach or panav leishuna. So too your face shouldn't change. Like he says over here in the translation, afilu machisim, I say, even if someone gets you upset, you shouldn't give off that impression that your face shows. This is a very tall order. The kol hamistakel behem, anyone who looks at you, at your face, should only see joy. And there should be nothing that should throw you off this. Your face has to always be, that's what, you have some people like that, mamish. There's people like, you look at them, someone you don't even understand them. How could they always give off a happy face, always give off a welcoming face, always give off a comforting face? That's what you should do. He says there's nothing. He says v'shum siba, no situation should throw you off of this, of having, you should be torrid, you should be preoccupied that you can't give off a welcoming face. So again, this is an amazing tall order. And again, after he finishes with the final one, which we'll finish with now, which is the 8th, he goes into saying, okay, so what is the strategy? And that's where he starts, and we can do that next week. But let's just finish off the 8th one. The 8th one is the mouth, obviously, right? The mouth could be a wicked tool. So he says, "Sha'adam yoitzi mipiv rak dvarim tov." You should only give off, only say good things. Meaning, he says in the original text, "Piv la yoitzi ela tova." Your mouth should only give off positive. Ugzeres amar of Torah, and you should only be a person that's giving off teaching Torah. Vafakas ratzin tov tamid, and only giving off good ruts and goodwill constantly. So you're not saying anything bad. You're talking holy, appropriate Torah. It means when someone hears something from you, right? You should always have something, not just only positive, but also Torah. Be a person that has always something connected to the parsha, something connected with the situation, but something that gives off some Torah. You take an opportunity when you interact with the person. I forget the Hayom Yom, which Rebbe said it, that the greatness of a person that goes to the market. I think the Rebbe Marash said it. That about Reb Eli Abella, I think his name was, that when he goes to the market, he has an opportunity just to interact with people, say a good word, say a Nen Yaakov, a nice medrash I saw. I read something on the Parsha, very interesting this week. Right? You could always bring into conversation an idea of Torah. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's one of the things of the mouth is A, not to say negative, B, say positive. And main thing is Torah, right? What we Devorah shasamti b'ficha, it says. God says, my words means the words of Torah that I put in your mouth. So you should be a person that's always look for an opportunity to give over a vart. A person should know that when they see you, you have something not just positive to say, but something important to say, something of Torah. And that's actually, after a while, people come to rely on that. And they, oh, good, I'm going to see this person, he or she's going to tell me something. It doesn't have to be a great, deep idea, but something of vart, something that's going to add in Torah. Surely don't say anything inappropriate. Don't curse. Obviously, that could be bad language or negative talk. cursing another person. V'lei rag is v'kas klal. Don't use your mouth for anger. Hard one. V'lei dvarim b'telim. Don't talk wasteful things. This is obvious. V'yadoyme l'oisei pei elin. Try to emulate again. The idea of the Tomar Devorah is to emulate Hashem. She'enei nistam klal l'yimna toiv tamid. So here he says again, similar to the eyes, the person could just say, okay, fine. You know what? The best thing is I'm going to just keep my mouth shut. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut because anytime I say something, I'm either misunderstood or I communicate something wrong or I say something angry or I have a bad tone in my voice. The person may say, I have to close my mouth. So the Talmud Devorah says, no. Just like you have eyes, a person thinks that the only way to do it is to walk like this the whole day and cover your eyes. No, your eyes has to be open to see things. Just you're an adult, you're a mature person. Work it out to make sure to look at the right things. And same thing comes to your mouth. You can't say, I can't say anything. If I open my mouth, I'm misunderstood or I cause anger. He says, it doesn't close. God's mouth doesn't close. But it doesn't stop saying good. So too, don't keep your mouth shut. Try to be inspiring. Try to say something positive. Try to be good, and try to exercise caution and control, and not say what's hurtful or negative or angry, etc. He says yechsha means don't stop. Don't stop from saying good things or positive things. You should be a person that's giving off good things and blessings constantly. Again, God gave you a mouth, use it, but don't use it wrong. So again, what we're learning from the Tomar Devorah is there's nothing Hashem gives you that's wasteful, and there's nothing you can say. Well, I'm not a person who can control my eyes. I'm not a person who can control my ears. I'm not a person who can control my mouth. Right? I'm not a person who can control my expression. It doesn't say that God doesn't give off a bad expression. It says, "Ba'or pnei melachayim." It's one of the most quoted verses that's in Chassidus about Hashem. Ba'or pnei melech is chayim. What is the image? What is the light that radiates from Hashem is life. Do it. Give off positive. Don't close your mouth. Don't say I can't talk good. You can. Just figure it out. Find something, have something prepared to say. When you see someone, instead of talking wasteful things, always have something on the parsha or something on the on Tillim or a thought or something you've read or something you've heard. You've given a mouth, use it appropriately. Use it properly. So I think that's one of the main lessons of, he finishes off here and we'll finish off here. The main lessons of the Tomar Devorah is that you've been given things, use them, just use them right. And you can use them wrong. Know that every single thing you have can be used in a positive or negative. Use it, but use it positively and productively and in a way that people benefit. So here he finishes off. Let's just wrap up the first part of the second chapter. Is Hari Elu Shmoina Midas Taivas. These 8 things. So what are the 8 things again? Start from the beginning just to recap. The first thing is humility. The second one is thought. The third one is the forehead. We learned about last week. The fourth one is your ears. The fifth is your eyes. The sixth is your nostrils. The seventh is your face. And the 8th is your mouth. It says, V'harei elu shmoina midas toivus, these 8 good attributes. V'chulin tachas degel hanav, and they all have to be, what is the flag that you could hold that makes sure that they all are positive, is humility. When it's not about you, so you could look at the right things and you could say the right things and you could pay attention, you give off the right attitude. When we say God has avarim, God has limbs, it means these things. How he uses what we understand as eyes, ears, and mouth. You want to be like God? If you want to be a person that emulates Hashem, that through us God communicates and expresses himself in the world, you must excel in these 2 chapters. Chapter 1, which we learned in the beginning, which is our how we interact with people, the different strategies of anger and being productive and forgiving, the 13 attributes of mercy, and the 8 tools that we've been given of interaction. When you excel at this is how you emulate Hashem. And again, in top of beginning of chapter, page Samach Tes, on chapter 2, he says, Amnam yadanu she'i efshel isnag be'ela midas tamid. I know it's impossible. And therefore, he goes further to give a strategy of how one could tackle these two prakim in a way, like he says further down, Vani matzasi trufa. He talks openly. I found trufa really means medicine, but I found a method of how we should figure out, strategize. How do I control my temper? How do I give off the right impression? How do I only look at the right things? How do I only pay attention to say the right things, right? All those things. How do I do it? I know I'm supposed to do it, but how do I do it? And that it goes into starting from page, from Umnam, which will, Mirz Hashem, those want to join next week. So if there's any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, we'll reconvene Bezras Hashem next week. Right? Take care. Lada Tov. Thank you. Everyone have a good night.
You too. Thank you.